First, here's Ted Latonis with a Subaru Justy four-wheel drive ECVT.
Well, it looks like Subaru are staying with the ECVT. In fact, the new Justy has the ECVT, as well as 4 doors and four-wheel drive. ECVT, you may remember, stands for Electronic Continually Variable Transmission, and the Justy is the only passenger car in the world that has it. Briefly, the ECVT has twin pulleys connected by an expandable steel belt, as opposed to gears and levers. According to Subaru, this means it has fewer moving parts, is lighter in weight, and easier to service than a conventional automatic transmission. It also performs a lot less smoothly than a regular Autobox, but I'll get to that in a moment. Our test Justy GL also has on-demand four-wheel drive, which must make it the most technologically sophisticated Econobox on the market. Four-wheel drive can be had at the press of a button on the shift lever, and although the Justy isn't exactly an off-road bush beast, it'll certainly handle anything the city can throw at it. Power is provided by a 1.2-liter, 3-cylinder engine with 3 valves per cylinder. It develops 73 horsepower at 5,600 RPM in the GL model and 66 horsepower at 5,200 RPM in the lower-priced DL. Again, this is way off the beaten track. I mean, how many other 9-valve engines are there on the market? 2 transmissions are offered, 5-speed manual and the ECVT. Fuel consumption is a thrifty 7 liters per 100 kilometers or 40 miles per gallon in the city, and 6.5 liters per 100 kilometers or 44 miles per gallon on the highway with the ECVT. This is one of the few cars with an automatic transmission that actually gives better fuel consumption than the manual. And the price for our test car was $11,399. I guess my biggest problem with the ECVT is that it seems to be a clear case of technology for its own sake. Power comes on very abruptly in low RPMs, and the shift lever is balky and uncooperative. Driving the ECVT is not a pleasurable experience, and torque steer under acceleration is a problem. I admire Subaru for persevering with the ECVT, but a conventional gearbox would work just as well. In fact, were I to buy a Justy, I'd bypass the automatic transmission altogether and go with a 5-speed, especially if I was contemplating the 4x4. If nothing else, it's less expensive. But despite my problems with the ECVT, the Justy is still one of the better Econoboxes. It comes very well equipped, with things like analog instrumentation, collapsible rear-view mirrors, and a fold-down rear seat as standard equipment. Backseat legroom for an economy hatchback is very good, and the Justy has one of the smallest turning circles in the industry. You even get a little toolkit thrown into the bargain. And, as usual with Subaru, you can more or less depend on cast-iron dependability. I wouldn't want to take the Justy from coast to coast, but for zipping around the city with the occasional foray into the boonies, it's the only game in town. Lots of two-wheel drive competition here, including the Nissan Micra, Hyundai Excel, Dodge Colt, Suzuki Swift, Pontiac Firefly, and Chev Sprint and Honda Civic. But the Justy is the only model in this market segment with four-wheel drive. An interesting car, Tony.
Well, I think it is interesting. Particularly the upholstery, the most horrible upholstery I've seen in many a year in there. And the shape is a bit boring, you know. The ECVT, I like that. I think that's a step in the right direction. It may have its limitations, but it works very well. And the price of this car is very, very good indeed, I think. It's a good buy.
Before we go any further, I made a mistake in the clip there. It's electronically continuously variable transmission. Not constantly, not continually, but continuously.
Right.
To get
Which
that
means
right.
that it will change as required by the speed you're going, right?
That's
the speed generated.
That's right.
But I think that you may say that Subaru is kind of up a back alley with this transmission, but I don't think so. I think that they are perhaps leading a new trend that nobody wants to follow.
I'm not saying that. I think that they've got the technology down. I think they've mastered this particular gearbox or transmission. But it's pointless to me. An automatic would be just as good and probably easier for them to make, and fuel consumption might be a little bit higher, but not enough to really be a major problem, I don't think.
But I mean, in the future, I mean, having a stepless automatic transmission must be a step in the right direction, if I could say.
You could say that. I wouldn't say that.
But I'm inclined to say that if we poo-pooed all these ideas, we wouldn't have things like ABS brakes and so forth, anti-lock brakes.
I take your point, but you can't tell me that ECVT is in the same league as ABS and supplementary
well,
restraints.
that kind of technological advancement, I think that this kind of technology should be encouraged. It does work.
I agree.
We can't deny it doesn't work.
I agree 100%. It should be encouraged, and they've done it. But you have to recognize some things work, some things don't work. This one, they did it, tried it. It's pointless.
I still think it's just the upholstery you don't like, Ted, but I'd like to see this tried in a bigger car.
Yeah.
I think it would be a
I also
good
want to
idea.
throw in here that despite the ECVT, this is a very good subcompact. Anyway, we have to move on.
Yeah.
Red light, green light. What don't we like about it? Well, the transmission, obviously, I have a big problem with it. Tony doesn't seem to mind it so much. Green light, price is quite competitive. Fuel economy is very, very good, and you get a lot of car for the money. As far as the driving dollar value goes, I give it 3/4 of a tank, only because I like the car, but I still got some trepidation about the ECVT.
We'll be back after